church, and this is actually my first time back to a youth gathering in 5 years. And for my Snapchat memories, today is actually exactly 6 years after my last senior high youth gathering as a board member. Between then and now, I was at Gustavus, Adolphus College, go Gusties, and I worked in the chaplain's office, as it was said. It really shaped my life, and thankfully LYO is what got me and led me to Gustavus. Unfortunately, Pastor Grady's not on the board anymore, but he really helped me in getting to Gustavus and picking my college. So in my life, I have given what I consider to be 3 important speeches. My first faith talk, which was about my aunt who had pancreatic cancer. My second faith talk, which was me being real with my mental health. I have a tendency to put on a stronger front than what I feel like I have, and that is what I did in my first faith talk. So my second faith talk at my last senior high youth gathering, I was real about that. And then after that, at Gustavus, as mentioned, I was a preaching intern, and as I was a preaching intern, I talked about how I don't think God makes bad things happen. Bad things happen in life, but I don't think God is what makes that happen. And I did that on Reformation Sunday at Gustavus. Raise your hand, please, if you've heard this. Who has heard the saying, "It's all a part of God's plan"?
Oh, yeah.
All right, hands down. Who has heard the saying, "Everything happens for a reason"? All right. You can put your hands down. Now, I'm not here to challenge your belief on that, if that is what you believe. If that is what you believe, good for you. I do not think there is one perfect way to interpret the Bible, one perfect way to believe, one perfect anything. However, I do not believe in that. In fact, I think that is a load of crap. So sorry if you don't agree, but that is okay. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just here to inspire some conversations. So our gathering verse reads, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand." We all have our fears. To fear the unknown is common. To fear retribution is valid. To fear our actions, our words, and our choices today and how they may impact us for the rest of our lives is totally understandable. Our gathering verse says, "Do not fear in God. To fear, for God is with you." Sorry, brain fog. Like I said, it's going to happen. I'll explain it later. But there's many points in the Bible where we are told to fear God. That's kind of crazy, right? Fearing God when he's telling us to have no fears. So in Proverbs 3:7, God says, "Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil." Deuteronomy 10:12 says, "And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God ask of you, but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul." Joshua 4:25 says, "He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know that the hand of the Lord is powerful, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God." And again, in Luke 1:50, it says, "His mercy extends to those who fear him for generation to generation." Now, Martin Luther had an important revelation when it comes to fear, and what the difference is between servile fear and filial fear. He describes servile fear as the kind of fear a prisoner has for his torturer, and filial fear is the fear a child who loves their parent and does not want to offend them or let them down. It is a fear to be born of respect, and when the Bible calls us to fear God, it is issuing a call to fear born of awe and admiration. It is respect of the highest magnitude. We are not to experience servile fear from God. He is not here to torture us. However, we as God's children are put on this earth to be a living extension of their mercy. We want to appease God just like we do any authority figure you may have, whether it's your parent, your pastor, your older siblings, younger siblings, whoever it is. We don't want to disappoint them in life. And that's the kind of fear we have with God. Now, when we flip what the word fear means, it gives us what I believe is a whole new outlook on life. When talking about fear, Martin Luther said in a letter, but God declares everywhere that I should let him care for me. He depends upon me, await my bidding, and let me take care of you. When bad things happen to us, or those that we love, we usually ask, why me? What did I do to deserve this? And let me be the one to tell you, you did nothing. You did nothing to deserve this. God did not make that bad thing happen to you. God powerful, but so does life. In Jeremiah 29:11, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." This is my favorite Bible verse. It may sound a little contradictory, since I was just talking about how I don't think that God plans to harm people. It is a verse that I clung to when my aunt was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and I actually have it tattooed onto me today. I am here, as I said, challenging the idea that it's all part of God's plan. However, I think God's plan is as stated in Jeremiah 29:11, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Again, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. We are not living, in my opinion, in a scripted play where God is the director. Our life is not scripted from beginning to end. It is ours to make. God wants us to see who we become as a person. We have free will. We have the choice to follow God or to not. And again, any choice is not one that I think God will punish someone for. A good leader does not want harm for their people, but to help them. And God is the greatest leader, and Jesus is our shepherd. Now that I'm done being theological with you for a little bit, I want to share a little bit more how I've grappled with this recently and how I've experienced it. Following my aunt's death, and during her time battling stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I had many questions. I hurled many insults at God and many unkind words. And as I said, God states plainly in 29:11 that he has a plan. So I was confused. Was his plan to give my aunt and many others in life cancer? Was their plan to make them torture through cancer treatment? But God also says that they will not harm you. So then why is she sick in the first place? And then here in Isaiah 41:10, God says to do not fear. Okay. So you tell me that you have a plan, and in that plan someone is experiencing pain. Yet you won't harm me, and you don't want me to have any fears. That is quite a lot to wrap your head around, if you ask me. However, in the years following my aunt's death, I had an epiphany. God's plan is to not get people sick, and is not to have them experience pain and hardship, but it is to do everything in their earthly power to rescue you, and once it is too much, to take you home. And to me, that is comforting, and I hope that is for you as well. I refuse to believe that God makes bad things happen to good people. I refuse to believe that God makes bad things happen to bad people. I refuse to believe that God makes bad things happen, period, because we left that in the Old Testament. I refuse to believe that part of God's plan is for us to experience pain and hardship, but I do believe that God's plan is to help us grow, thrive, and overcome these hardships. That is why, when I was in a single vehicle car accident on November 24th of 2024, I knew that the road ahead of me, if it was too hard, too difficult, that God would have taken me home. Not to bury the lead there, but I was in a car accident. I crashed. I crashed my sister's car, and I crashed hard. Sean, next slide, please. So that picture on the right is me the day before my car accident with my family. I decided last minute to drive up to Spicer, Minnesota, where they live now, and make love some with them. Also because my car needed repairs, so I left it at home and drove my sister's car back to my place the next day. And then that picture on the left is just about 24 hours later, me in a hospital bed at Regents Hospital. So I get cluster headaches every so often. If you don't know what those are, it is essentially a migraine that clusters into one spot on your head. Sometimes it's the top of your head, your eyes, wherever. And that day, as I was driving down, I got one. And that day I had it with aura. Aura is basically like vertigo, any type of experience that makes you almost feel like you're hallucinating. Now, I was almost to Highway 212, heading south, and I told myself, okay, I could turn this way and hit a nice back gas station in 5 minutes, or go south for 10 minutes and hit a nice gas station. Yeah, no, I didn't hit either gas station. Instead, I hit a ditch. It's okay to laugh, that's how I cope with it. I don't remember what happened. 1 minute I was on the road, next minute I was in a ditch, heading for an embankment, just off the Highway 212 between Hector and Rhode Island. I feel like most of you guys probably know where that is. And I had the wherewithal for about 3 seconds to press on the brake. So I was heading toward that ditch at probably about 45, 50 miles an hour. I had the wherewithal to then tuck my head, because I get bad bloody noses, and I knew if I hit my nose on the steering wheel, that would not have been good. And the few seconds that I was in the air, because I hit that embankment and I kind of went Herbie style, flying right over it, I was telling myself, okay, this is happening. Gotta get through it. It's gonna be fine. I hit the ground, called 911, and at first I was like, do I remember when you call 911? Can my dad just pull me out of the ditch here? I think I'm fine. But no, I was not. A police officer showed up within 5 minutes, and then an ambulance, thankfully only 5 minutes after that, which in rural Minnesota is an amazing response time, might I just say. I had God's side on me, God with me that day. Like I said, as I was in the air, I was telling myself, okay, this is happening. Looking back, I did not think it was myself telling me that. Whether it was God, guardian angel, my aunt, I don't know. But I had this eerie calmness that came over me, and it's lasted me pretty much this entire time. Shortly afterwards, in that 10-minute period, Sheriff Hable arrived as the EMT and put a C collar on me. If you guys are from Monroe County, you probably know Sheriff Hable. Shout out. And he goes, "Oh, Emma Thompson, I know you. I know your dad." And I'm like, great. Last thing I wanted, but it was actually the best thing that could have happened. Now, I was in the car. We were trying to figure out how to push the seat back. Couldn't figure it out. It wasn't my car. It was my sister's car. So, we got a seat collar on me, and I walked. I walked out of the car, up the ditch. I have no idea how far into the ditch that it was. I do not remember. And I got to the stretcher. Bring me into the ambulance, get to the hospital, walk from the stretcher to the bed. That keeps happening. We get there, we do the scans, and I'm like, okay, just get me home. I just need to see a chiropractor. This is fine. It wasn't fine. The physician came back in and said, "We can't see your scans well. We're sending you to Regions. There's something off." So I go to Regions, again, getting out of that bed, into the next stretcher, into the ambulance to head to Regions. I arrived at Regions probably around 11 p.m. that night, and I crashed around 4:45 p.m. that night. Again, transferring from stretcher to bed by walking. Continuing on, going. In the stretcher, I was telling myself in the ambulance, okay, this is happening now. We're gonna go to Regions, we're gonna get scans, gonna be fine, gonna be going home. And it's all right. Which this is totally out of character for you, for me. If you ask any of the LYO adults that know me, they know I have really bad anxiety. So this was totally not like me. I get to Regions, walk from bed to bed, go to the MRI and the CT, walk from bed to table, bed to table. Both times the text told me, "I can't believe you're walking." That should have been a sign. Next slide, please, Sean. So that's my spine. As you can see, the brake was pressing on my spinal cord. That is not something I knew until after surgery. And if I knew that, probably would have panicked a little bit more. So my vertebrae broke at my T12, and as you can see, it's shattered, and then it also compressed down, or my T11 compressed down onto my T12. So there's a few things not quite right with that. So we saw that, and they were like, "We're not quite sure about surgery yet. You might just have a brace, you'll be fine." Get up to the hospital room, walk from bed to bed again, thinking I'm fine. And my nurse comes in, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm walking, I can walk just fine." And that's when I find out I am on flat bed rest. What? I've been walking this whole time. I was on flat bed rest for 36 plus hours. And when you're on flat bed rest, you cannot sit, you cannot stand, you cannot elevate your bed. You can't get up to go to the bathroom. You can't get up to shower. Can't get up to do anything. And I was really worried about my hair matting because I had family that was in a car accident before and they had matted hair. So making sure that my hair was fine was hard to do as well. After about 36 hours, I had my surgery, 3 days after the car accident, and then I was discharged and sent home to my parents. However, those 3 days were the most painful, most agonizing days of my life. The pain meds they gave me before surgery that made me feel like I could walk all 11 floors of that hospital building no longer touched a single thing. I was constantly gripping the edge of my bed, bracing in pain. I was delirious. I know I confused many nurses in what I was saying. Definitely confused myself as well. And I was in pain, yet I was also hovering over my body, taking it all in. Those next 5 weeks were painful as well. I had a TSLO brace that the chief of neurosurgery at Regions Hospital called the torture brace. It hurt to sit, it hurt to move, it hurt to stand, to breathe, to cut my own food, to bite into an apple, and to use the bathroom, to do anything. And on top of all this, next slide. Oh yeah, that's just another picture of, I have screws and rods on my back. That's a picture of that. Next slide again. So that's the torture brace that I had to wear for 6 weeks. You cannot stand or sit with that. The only time I did not have to wear that was when I was sleeping, laying down, or when I was showering. So on top of all this, 3 of my, I think 11 or 12 incisions decided to split open and become infected. Before Christmas, I went to Central Care Urgent Care in Wilmer, and God bless Dr. Abrams because too much information, but those incisions were a lot to take care of, and the poor guy had to take a shower afterwards. Sorry if that's too much, but I want to share the full reality of what happened. On New Year's Eve, I had an appointment at wound care. The incisions that were infected were looking a lot better. They measured them, and they were 0.1, 0.2 centimeters deep. They cleaned them, packed them with collagen, and put silver nitrate in them to heal, and I was on my way. A week later, I saw my neurosurgeon for a follow-up, and didn't even get to talk about getting to potentially take that torture brace off. She looked at my back, packed it, measured it, and it was 2 centimeters deep. Within a week, it was 0.1 centimeters deep to 2 centimeters deep. Because of that, we were going to need to do another surgery to clean out the incision. And in that surgery, they decided to open up the other, I think only one incision, and clean it out. So in just 1 week again, I went from being on the upward climb, just crashing right back down. I went from hoping I was getting to get the all clear and to live on my own again, finally, to being shuffled around for more scans and having yet another surgery to clean up the wounds. Next slide, please. So the one on the furthest left is me surgery day. The middle is me sitting in post-op because I was in there for 5 hours and I sent my mom my phone and I had lots of fun taking selfies on the post-surgery drugs. And then on the furthest to the left, sorry, I mix up my words a little sometimes, side is one of the few things I got to do in the hospital afterwards, which was read, because I had to sit in the hospital for another 5 days while we rated test results from the infection that I had on my back. I am not contagious. You have no risk being around me, I promise you that. And this makes no sense for somebody my age. 0 sense. Somebody my age, my health, my privilege should not have been experiencing this. So we ran every test possible, and the neurosurgeon comes back in, chief of neurosurgery, tells me, well, the only thing you tested positive for was bad luck. Great, thank you, sir. That's really comforting to hear. So, that surgery was January 10th of this year. I went into urgent care on December 20th, had my appointment a week later, not more than a week later, December 31st, another appointment. And today, April 4th, I am still on antibiotics to fight the infection, and I will be until at least the end of May. I don't know if any of you guys have been on antibiotics before, but they are not fun. And take the antibiotics that you may have been used to experiencing, times that by about 10, and that's why I have brain fog, quite often. I also had to have a PICC line inserted into my arm, which is basically a semi-permanent IV that goes from about right here all the way to my heart, and I had to pump medication into it 3 times a day. Well, about 3 weeks into it, I was living on my own again, thankfully, with restrictions. Family and friends were able to help me out so I could live alone. About 3 weeks into it, I started to notice that my chest hurt. Went to the doctor for my weekly appointment to get my PICC line clean. Told them, went to the ER to get x-rays to see why my chest was hurting, see if the PICC line moved. They're like, well, we don't know why your chest is hurting. Basically, they could not figure out why my chest was hurting, so I was sent home. 2 days later, I woke up with a 105-degree fever, called the pharmaceutical agency that was in charge of my PICC line, called my doctor, and finally called my grandpa to bring me to the ER. I arrived by 8:45 a.m., a red, sweaty, fevery mess. I told them that I'm having an allergic reaction to my meds, and it wasn't until 6 p.m. that day that I was told, yes, you are having an allergic reaction to your meds. To be fair, my symptoms fit sepsis, so that's what was their first assumption. And I spent 11.5 hours in the ER that day, a delirious mess for a diagnosis that I already came up with. But whatever. It There's a reason why I don't have pictures of that, because that was not a great day. And it was only just a few days after that, after sitting there for a while, I picked up this devotion book that Sister Sarah Houskin gave me and read a devotional that speaks to exactly what I was going through. Give me one moment here, I'm going to read it to you guys. All right, it is titled God at Work. Genesis 50:19-20. But Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended for good to accomplish what is now being done in the saving of many lives." And then the author goes on to say, one of my favorite seminary professors says these are some of the most important verses in all of Genesis. This is a big statement, considering Genesis contains the creation of Noah and Abraham and covenants of all over the place. So what makes these verses such a big deal, especially since we do not read them as regularly as others in the book? These two verses tell us something huge about God. Even when he seems hard to find, God is working. Let me say that again. Even when God seems hard to find, God is working. No matter the scenario, God is working in it. But, and this is important, God doesn't make bad things happen, but he is working in them. Notice how Joseph doesn't say that God made bad things happen. He said his brothers intended something bad, and it was the actions of God in the midst of the bad stuff that made good happen. Does that mean that Joseph's being left behind and sold into slavery magically became good? No, not even close. Being sold by your jealous brother is a difficult thing to make good. Does that mean that Joseph was okay with all that had happened to him? No. He forgave his brothers for what happened was never okay. But did God work within the bad? Yes. So much yes. I know that trust is sometimes hard. I imagine while Joseph was sitting in the bottom of an old well or in jail in Egypt, it was hard for him to trust. But in those times when Joseph felt that God had forgotten him, God was hard at work. So if there is a bad thing happening in your life right now, trust that God is in it. Even when it's hard to see God in your life, trust that God is there. Deep within what is hard, working to make good things happen, God is there. God is there, and God is at work. Now, I can't say that throughout all this I remember to pray every day. I think if any of you guys say that you do pray every day, besides maybe a pastor or something, you're lying. Every day, there's other things that got me through. A book, a podcast, and yes, there are days also that I did remember to pray. Sorry, brain fog, as mentioned. Got it. Okay, there we go. Like I said, it's going to happen. However, just because I didn't pray every day, or didn't think about God every day, and how he was helping me every day through all of this, God was there. Another doctor told me that my good luck ran out the minute the car hit the ground, because I should not have been able to walk out. My injuries should have been a lot worse than they were, and that's when the good luck ran out. However, I don't think it is. I don't think it was luck at all. I think it was how God was helping me get through all this, and how I am here today, well, now sitting, not standing, even though I should not be. So, if any of you guys are going through a hard time now, in the future, in the past, just know that even if you don't see God, you don't feel God, that God is there, doing what God can possibly do to get you through.